We are going to have a brief presentation. When I say brief, I mean 15 minutes, and then the bulk of the time is left for questions and answers. And we have some of our experts here, including our architect and our director of buildings and grounds, and our business manager, and our board presidents here. So we have some concerned citizens, but I know you can be a lot of places tonight, and you're giving up your time here. So thank you very much for that. And I'll just get right to the point. We've spent a tremendous amount of time the last couple of years trying to come up with the best decision possible for our community and our school district. And the bottom line is asking our hardworking, respectful, generous taxpayers to support a new school. A new school referendum and informational meeting. There will be a ballot issue this upcoming November that will ask the taxpayers at CUSD 201 for $68 million to build a new school combining Manning and Miller at the Miller site. And we walked through that process with our community to come to that conclusion. So quick introduction tonight. We're going to talk about why Miller, talk about the impact inflation's had on our community, the benefits of consolidation. So we're going from 2 schools to 1. There are a lot of savings for our district and our taxpayers by making that move. We think there's advantages there that we really want to highlight. The facility's history, a brief history there, and also future CUSD 201, and then question and answer. So we started having town halls in May of 2024. I think we've held in total over 20 of those, well, close to 25 public information meetings. We've listened to our community. It has led us down to make some alterations in our plans that led us to today's solution. So it's not something that we took lightly. In fact, to speak frankly, which is the only way I know how to speak, I personally, my preference was at the previous site. It doesn't matter what I think. It's got to be a community decision. So this is how part of the collaboration we've come to. And there were several options. We really feel like this is the best, not just for the school district, but the taxpayers and the community at large. Initially, when we looked at having to build a new school, which I think is absolutely imperative, we have experts here who can speak to why that's the case. This 90-year-old building that is part of the replacement, and our other one is about 7 years old. But we originally thought we would move to the Miller site for a lot of it, because it was our site, and we had ways of doing that. However, we were very concerned at that time. The input we got from the village and other entities was the real concerns about asking our fellow citizens to leave their homes. That's been resolved, and I'll talk about that. But at the time, it led us away from the Miller site. And we went for a referendum in 2024. There was no specific location that was mentioned, just the need for a new building. And out of 7,000 votes, it came up 1 vote short of a tie, which is pretty significant. In the second time round, we lost by a considerable margin. Part of what we heard from people is they did not like the idea of having all 3 buildings next to each other on the north side of Ogden, because it would mean that a good portion of the community would have to be bused from day 1. So that brought the location back to Miller. The greatest concern was about the citizens. Well, I'm going to tell you this. So this is the general outlay. We could not build a building that we need with the grounds we need for the kids with just the Miller building. We need the surrounding area for parking and for some playgrounds for our kids. And as I said, what initially led us away from this location was a concern about citizens. But as we're seated here tonight and present here tonight, 6 of the 7 families have signed contracts. So if the referendum passes, we are ready to go. And 6 of those 7 families, I would argue, are fairly enthusiastic. They said they've been treated very fairly, which I believe is the case. One of the accommodations we have made is that in one situation, we're going to leave part of the house as it is to try to be as considerate to our neighbor as possible. The seventh person has not signed a contract. They are not saying they would never do that, but they have not done that at this time. So that was one of the biggest hurdles that we faced. And I feel like under the circumstances, we've come a long way there of solving that part of the equation. This is probably, from an economic standpoint, the greatest opportunity we have, because other locations were significantly higher than that. And the plan is to pay this, if the referendum is successful, the sale of this building will offset the cost of purchasing those properties. What's the advantages to the Miller site? We have designed, our architects, Rob is here tonight from Leggett, a convenient off-street drop-off and pickup with that expanded footprint, so that's advantageous. We are fairly confident that we're not going to have to displace students during the construction process, which is a huge plus. It's what people consider a more central location instead of having all the buildings north of Ogden. This is still a foothold on this side of Ogden, this part of the town. And another benefit, we've been working closely with the village leadership. The sale of this property will lead to more development in the downtown area, which would have benefits to the taxpayers. Currently, this rather large space in the middle of downtown doesn't generate any tax revenue. We're a non-for-profit, right? We're a public school. So if you can convert a non-for-profit space into another tax-paying body, whether it's residential or business or whatever it may be, that will actually add to the tax paying situation here in Westvine. So besides the location and no need to disrupt students in central location, there also is this revitalization of downtown that we would have a hand in. This is the sad reality. We've been discussing doing something since 2011. I've been here for 15 years. This is prior to my arrival, and I was principal for the first 11 years at the high school. But if we would have built a new building back then, the estimated cost is somewhere in the $19 to $25 million range. Prolonging this, you feel the effects of inflation. So that's how we got to the $68 million number. I wish this would have been addressed a decade or more ago. There were attempts, they were unsuccessful. And this district has never passed a referendum, never, since its inception, 50 years. We'll talk more about that in a minute, because we're about the only district that's not done that. This just charts the impact that inflation has. Over almost 20 years' time, costs are rising, and here's the sad reality. They're not going backwards. The building that we can build today, if we prolong this any longer, is just going to get more expensive. There are very significant costs to building one building and consolidating. One of them is maintenance costs, because you'll have less overall to maintain one building versus multiple buildings. But also utility cost savings with systems that are updated for 2026 versus the original systems that were built literally 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago. And with one building, we can see some reductions in staff that will lead to cost savings. Now, I do want to say, if you look at this year's budget, and our finance man is here, Ron O'Connor, this year's overall budget is slightly less than last year's. That is a very rare occurrence in a school district that they maintain costs, because we had to factor in, cost of living increases for our incredible faculty and staff, and still made enough reductions to have a balanced budget and a reduction in spending. So, but there will be additional costs down the road. We're conservatively estimating a savings of about $600,000 to $700,000 a year, but only if we consolidate. This is a quick history. As I said, original conversations took place as far back as 2009, 2011, because there were security concerns. And we went to actual referendums that were never passed. It would have addressed many of the issues. Not all of them, but many of them. Then we did use some cash within the district's means
to address some infrastructure, especially at the high school, and some safety concerns. We did have ongoing conversations, and we did a major HVAC renovation at the junior high. It was absolutely imperative. And then, of course, we're at the point where we need these repairs. It's beyond a small fix, and we're here today. There's no question, we can give any interested party a tour of these facilities. These are just some snapshots. This building, and I'll have Joe, who has to maintain it on daily, and they have done a marvelous job of maintaining it. But we're at the point of replacement, not simply repair. And it's really tragic, some of the wiring systems from 1949 and et cetera. This is one of the examples from our very talented and experienced architects, Leggett. This is an example, because I know it's an investment and a sacrifice, but there's something beautiful that could come from this, and that is a quality building for our kids and our community. So this is just an example of what we can imagine. But the indoor spaces are really appealing. If you walk these hallways compared to what most districts in our district could have, it's night and day. And these are just some examples of what our kids and our community could experience. This is what they call a sensory room, which is something that did not exist just a few decades ago, to try to meet the emotional needs and the needs of some of our kids. A library space that's updated to the 2026 standards and beyond. I do want to speak very briefly. I just put the challenge out there. Our district, when it comes to achievement, return on investment, we are currently ranked #1 in Illinois for unit districts for student growth, which is the most important metric. And furthermore, our high school was just named as the best high school in DuPage County. That's pretty incredible. Not Hinsdale, not Naperville, not Elmhurst, not Wheaton, not all these communities are much wealthier than ours. Chicago Magazine, not the superintendent. The Illinois State Board of Education, not the superintendent. Guess what? The junior high is also ranked #1 in DuPage. This is remarkable achievement. And it's not just test scores, it's graduation rate, it's student growth. Our attendance is the envy of every district in this area. Ours is at 5%. If you go down the street to Downers, it's in the mid-20s. Why is our attendance 5 times better than that quality community? It's because of what we're doing in these schools. But the facilities don't match. But all these other communities have passed referendums. It's extremely frustrating. And it's not just test scores and rankings and ratings and attendance. When you ask our kids, are they happy here? We have top 1% in the state. Not an opinion, but a survey. There's no district that matches us here. So, what happens if this referendum doesn't pass? Well, someday we'll go back on the ballot. It'll be 5 or 6 years down the road. In the meantime, class sizes will increase. There'll be increased caseload for our caseworkers who are trying to meet the needs of our kids. We're going to have to cut activities and athletics and clubs, cut other services provided to students. There's no consolidation savings. This is do or die time. We can't kick the can down the road anymore. I don't know what more people can ask from a school district. These are all the neighboring districts that have recently passed referendums. If there was another vehicle, we would do it. We are creative, we get results. We are problem solvers, we are innovative. This is the way that you build a new building in the state of Illinois. And we are not the first to do this. We're not in the middle of the pack. We are dead last or close to it. This is the way. I wish there was a better way. I grew up lower middle class economically. And most of my life as a young teacher, I didn't have many resources, so I can't stand asking people for more money, but this is absolutely necessary. And as I say, what makes Westmont think that we're going to be the only ones who find an alternative, a better solution? There isn't one, or we would have found it. And here's the evidence. 45 other districts who have done the same thing we're asking our community to do, and none of them perform the way we do. None of them. This is everything anybody could ever possibly ask for, from frequently asked questions, to photos, to TIF information, to school finance, to history, to revenue percentages, and the tax calculator. We have experts here to answer questions. Yes, please.
Let's get this passed already.
Yeah.
But my question is, I've been seeing the opposition signs around town. Are new signs for our lawns gonna be made available for us or anything like that to spread the
So
awareness?
I'm gonna answer that one.
Okay. But as a school district, we can't.
And that's why.
Okay.
So the district, okay, cannot, now that this has been on the ballot, okay, the school district and the Board of Education cannot take a stance. Okay, so all of the coordination that you saw in the previous years, the campaign, was done by private individuals in the community. So you won't see that from the district. You won't see that push from the district, but certainly I know that there are folks in the community, lots of folks in the community who support it, you know, and when they come together, I guarantee it will. Yeah, so kind of look for it there,
Okay,
if that
great,
makes sense.
thank you.
Last time the builder and the architect donated to the Yes campaign, will be some kind of push that outside influencers do not donate money that they're gonna be making off of the village?
I'm not sure that that's not something that Jack can or should answer, and I can't say, I wasn't part of that organizing, so.
Can I ask what the concern with that would be?
They're making money off of this. Why are they pushing it through?
Well, because they want to make money. They want the school to
Right.
go into effect,
So
right?
why don't they give it to the Yes people and keep people out the money? To the No people.
That's a question for the architectural firm, I guess. If that was the case.
Well, it's on state record, you can Google it up there.
All right.
And the teachers union donated $30,000. So,
They obviously want a new school, right?
well, they got a nice rate last time.
Keith, that would be a better question to whatever folks organize, okay?
See if somebody steps up.
Hi.
Okay, now, did I understand correctly that you said that the sale of this building will take the cost of the 7 houses that are gonna be bought?
So there's your question.
Okay, my question is that the sale of this building will pay for the cost of the 7 homes that are to be demolished?
Yes, that's the game plan.
Okay,
There might be a slight variance on either side, but it will almost completely take care of the cost of that. The money we're asking for on the referendum is to build a new school and everything gets included. And then the trade of manning for those properties, yes.
Is that figure ever gonna be made public,
Which figure?
of the 7 houses?
Yeah, it by law, it has to be. It will be, absolutely. You can imagine, we've been in negotiations, and we try to keep that confidential.
Yeah.
To be fair to those citizens who are making a sacrifice, and to be, fiscally responsible, we should be negotiating that in public. But absolutely, the sale price of every house will be made public, 100%.
Once they're closed, just like any
Yeah.
standard real estate transaction. So that wouldn't happen prior to the referendum being passed. Because we wouldn't purchase
Right.
these properties, so, yeah.
I can't help but be just curious. Do you know what the square footage of the new building?
We're targeting 90,000 square feet, but the building hasn't been designed yet, so we don't know exactly how big it is, but that's a square footage amount that we think is adequate for the programs that need to be housed within the building.
Is it a, thank you.
I can speak up. Say the referendum's passed, how long, or what is the timeline we're looking at for the school to actually be built?
I don't, this is the issue, I mean, not in the fall of, and others can chime in on this, not in, so if it passes in the fall of '26, not in the fall of '27, unlikely the fall of '28, probably the fall of '29, because we're probably not gonna move kids in the middle of the year. So the targeted date would be the fall of 2029.
In round numbers, it's about a year for the design and bidding process, and about 18 months for construction. So 2.5 years roughly, start to finish. There's ways we can accelerate that, but in round numbers, that's a good guess.
I got a couple questions. Please. You don't have to give me the mic, it's okay. I'll just stand up, it's fine, it's fine. Ron, thank you for sending me that image of the estimated debt service.
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. First of all, I'm just acknowledging Ron O'Connor, he sent me a schedule of debt service for the $68 million bond vote. I noticed in the footnotes, it's based on the interest rate of 5.07 as of June the 1st. We all know this past week, the bond market's been kind of iffy. What is your expectation when the first series, which is was it 27 million is going to float? What is your expectation, or what is your feeling? Well, I won't say feeling. What is your expectation? What that rate would be? The bonds will be issued after the referendum, correct? All right. So within a week of the referendum passing, or do we know the timing of that? Or?
We do. So based on the bond issuance afterwards, what we would do, I'm sorry, thank you, Jack. So what we would do afterwards is we would actually fight to get the best possible rate. So we would work with Moody's, S&P, discuss with them what the situation is, our past financial standing, which has been strong. We'd have to sell ourselves to get the best rate possible. So to me, I'm looking at, honestly, it's gonna be under 5. That's what my plan is, based on this.
Because the image that you give me is said AAA, MMD, the assumption, I don't know what MMD stands for, but I think it's municipal something.
Yeah,
D.
municipal market, yeah.
So as of June 1st, it's 5.07.
Correct.
So you think it's going to be less than 5%?
That's our plan with our
That's your plan, but is that your expectation?
expectation as well.
That is your expectation?
Correct.
After the referendum is over?
Correct. In fact, just to let you know, though, too, the bonds wouldn't be out, we wouldn't go out for it until February, because it has to have that much time for us to actually work with the council as well as with S&P and Moody's to make sure that we really show them this is what Westmont's about. It's a sales piece, just to make sure you can push it. That's what we're looking for.
Right, okay, so the like on your sheet that you have, that Jack flashed before us, where it gives you the tax calculation spreadsheet, that is based on 68 million and 5.07, is that what we're looking at?
That is correct.
Okay, so it's the best estimate as of now. I did have a question I sent to you, but I mean, you probably didn't have time to respond. Your example that you gave was for a $350,000 house. The annual impact is going to be, based on a homestead exemption, $638 or something like that. So is that constant for the next 30 years?
No.
Will that number will not stay the same?
That number can change, depending on how many people or companies or businesses come into Westmont, they end up taking a piece of that pie. So that set number of 68 million, we know it's 68. But when you have more and more people paying into the tax, it'll decrease for the rest of the taxpayers.
So we're hoping for dilution, okay? All right, what else did I say? All right, so then, the debt service, so at the end of 30 years, the bonds will be paid off?
Correct.
They will be paid off, okay, all right. All right.
Are more homes built in
That's good.
Westmont
Good.
before
It could be,
it goes down?
it doesn't necessarily have to be homes. Yeah, commercial is a big piece. Like some of the corporations are gonna be able to pay into more as well. Home ownership, we're actually starting to see an increase in our students, like how many we have that have registered. That helps because that means families are moving in. So instead of having, let's say, 20,000 people pay for it, you have 25,000 people paying for the same dollar amount. So it therefore lowers your tax rate. my previous district, we had a lot of industrial, so the tax rate was negligible compared to other places. Because industrial was paying into it.
And, I know in previous meetings, the mention of the sale of the Manning property, it'd be a TIF district. Is that, am I saying it right? It'd be a TIF property? So that for TIFs are what they last, they get tax breaks for 23 years, but that they are still contributing, to the village. But they would not pay their full share until the TIF expires.
That'd be something, I mean, because we can't call it TIF, that would be depending on if the village does it or not. So there could be that possibility, but I do know that 23 years is the max. Sometimes districts go for, villages go for less, right? Because they think, all right, we have this part under control, they readjust their TIF, so then they could actually build up more in other places. So that could be the same possibility.
So like for Quincy Station, their TIF property, their TIF's gonna expire 2035.
Something like give or take, yes.
Okay, fine. That doesn't, thank you. Thanks.
I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you are all putting into this. Obviously, I've got young kids. She's in first grade, just started first grade, so I didn't realize the conditions of these schools until recently. And these teachers are doing so much with so little. They've got window units in their classrooms, and they're sweating all day, and there's so much that they are giving to our kids, and I'm so grateful for these school districts. So I'm really looking forward to being able to give back and help make this pass, because you were all working really hard at it. I'm very grateful, so thank you. Also, we are in Westmont, we're trying to buy a new house. It is so hard. These houses are going so fast, because this is the best school district to be in, and we want to stay in the school district, so we are living in a really bad house right now just to stay in the school district, and we're gonna move as fast as we can to another house in the district, so thank you.
I don't know if you have the answer to this at all, but I understand that everyone's taxes will go up a certain amount, of course. On the flip side, I'd like to know, is there an average, or is it known as to how much people's property values go up when a new school gets built? Is there a certain, like a metric or percentage or something? It was nice to think that even though your taxes are going up by X amount, just maybe it'd be a nice way to kind of see the good side of it, which is your property values, like for a school district, like a new school, like might get X amount better. Is there any type of number for that? And I can understand that that's not in any of your guys' purview. I was just curious.
Rob saying, no, I don't know. Of it being studied, I don't know.
It depends on so many factors.
Right.
Boy, would it be great if there was, but it just depends on so many factors that there's not really.
Can't hurt.
Definitely doesn't hurt. That is a good point. New schools never hurt property values.
One thing that we have learned in this process is that it's unique for some homeowners. It's not, I mean, for some people it matters, but for some people it doesn't, because they have no intention of moving, even if home values increase. And we're understanding of that. So if you're not moving in the next 10, 15 years, you may or may not see that benefit. But I will say that if this does not pass, I do anticipate our schools going backwards and our community, and that will negatively impact home values for those who care. There is no question that this school district cannot sustain what's happening currently. We are arguably top 1% or the best in Illinois. That will not be the case if we have to take the dollars that we're putting into educating our kids and take significant money to renovating buildings that are way past their useful life. That will suck out resources, which will diminish the quality of the education, which will lower the quality of what people view about these schools, and that will negatively impact them. And I think that will hurt the community as a whole. Is that speculation? Yes and no. I say it is because I know the budget in this district. I know we are tightening things. As I said, show me another district that in fiscal year 26 spent this much and 27 spent this much. And we have strategic plans to be able to maintain that. But if we have to start taking away resources to pay for renovations that were not intended to be expensed through a budget, we won't be able to offer our kids as much. So, and the village will not be able to develop downtown here.
No, I didn't ask this question before, but this question came up in previous referendums. And you probably have a very good reason. Just explain why the high school, I think the last enrollment, past year was 385 students. The enrollment is not, I won't say the word decrease, but I'll say the word not increasing.
Yes.
It's been, mentioned that, that, it could be utilized better. Why wasn't that ever, was that ever considered possibly, the high school, combining, with the, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, or 7th and 8th grade students, so you utilize existing buildings more effectively?
Well, I think if you go to the junior high or the high school, there's not empty classrooms there. So it's not like there's a place to put the kids. You couldn't close one of the buildings and house everybody in there. It just would not work. And I really want to look everybody in this room, anybody in this community, anybody in the nation. What we have is incredible. I mean, there's no way on this planet that we should have the #1 ranked high school and junior high in one of the wealthiest counties in this state and nation. That is incredible return on investment, if that's what we're looking at. Incredible opportunity for our kids. So to mess with that, I frankly think would be a bad move. And you couldn't do it. If you took 300 kids from the junior high and let's say you repurposed that building, there's not space for 300 kids in the high school. There just simply isn't. Unless you want to blow up class sizes into the mid-30s and ruin the excellence we built. So I'm very cautious to make those kinds of decisions. And I come back to, we have done our job to provide excellence in education. And I really love this community. Why can't we do what 45 other communities in this immediate vicinity have done?
So one of the things I just want to kind of answer, that was kicked around quite a bit, the first two go around. But what people don't consider is, what about the social aspects? Should 6th, 7th, and 8th graders be going to school with high schoolers? There's a lot going on there. And I think overall the community has spoken that that is not the solution. Was it talked about? Was it kicked around? Absolutely. It wasn't. And for the gentleman here was asking about money going one way or the other, I would just simply ask you to take the opportunity to clear your mind and just ask yourself, does this community deserve a new school? Do our students deserve a new school? Because that, where that happens, that really shouldn't play into your personal decision on whether or not these kids in this community and the teachers deserve this school so that we can continue on with what we have. I've been here, I'm sorry.
I think it is my personal decision, what's gonna cost me $1,800.
It absolutely is, but where money comes in and helping, like somebody says, you had mentioned that somebody gave money to this campaign or that one, I didn't hear the whole thing. Should that really play a role in that decision? Should that play a role in the decision of, is this the right thing for the community? There's, no matter what it is, there's always backing in everything that gets done around this country, this community, this state. Who influences that? Does that matter? Or what matters is, how does this benefit our community, our kids? Someone mentioned about property values. It was you. I would say, yeah, there's a lot of factors in that, but it absolutely can't hurt. In fact, I would say it only helps. When you couple in the fact that we've got a top-performing high school, and then you can say, now we've got top facilities, this town always becomes a draw. This town will always be a draw because, number one, we're on the tracks. If you have a recession, towns on the tracks always bounce back first. That's a fact. You can look it up. You can look at all the trains that run through the Chicagoland area. Those communities always bounce back first. Recession-proof? No. Property values always escalate here first. This town has been a hot town since I moved in 2005. You can't find a house you really want. I think this lady was speaking to it. When I bought my house, I absolutely hated it, but I wanted to be here for the school district. That's why I moved here. Because of the curriculum and the school district and the teachers. When we moved in here, my wife's second grade teacher was still teaching here. Okay? So the fabric of the community. When you talk about the finances and you look at where the school's going, if we keep robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? To fix this, to fix that, eventually those cuts will happen. They will happen. And in my opinion, not anybody else's, at some point there's a breaking point where that's not sustainable and then you're insolvent. And then what happens? Your kids get shipped off to Hinsdale or Downers Grove. Oh, and you'll pay those higher taxes. You'll pay more probably than you will if you pass the referendum here. But here's the other thing that comes into play when that happens. When your kids start going to Hinsdale and Downers, what's the social impact on those kids? What's the impact on the community? I don't know, if my kids are always hanging out with their kids, their friends and parents out in Hinsdale and Downers Grove, I'm probably spending my time there and not in downtown Westmont. So I think this plan, this idea, is more than just, hey, we need a new building for these kids. It's about continuing the growth of Westmont in a lot of different aspects. And I think we just need to consider, hey, please go ahead, I'm just talking.
Well, I do believe there are people that live in Westmont that go to DG North. And there's people that live in Westmont that go to Hinsdale Central.
Yep.
So in Westmont, we've got 3 different high schools.
And back in
I
the-
don't.
That's
I'm
the
not-
problem.
I don't have an opinion, well, I do have an opinion on it, but it doesn't matter. It's just, yes, you're right, it's just.
Not
it's
our
a social
taxpayers.
impact for
Our
them.
taxpayers all come to here. The people who pay taxes for 201 all live in our district, and those people pay taxes
Before
for
the high
other
school was
districts.
built, kids went to Central, they went to Downers North and Westmont.
They did.
They did.
There's no way they're getting the same experience. Let me tell you something.
Right?
If you
I went
think
to
about
school with
this-
them and
What?
they have nothing bad to say about when they went to school. They went to, and they lived in Westmont, they lived in
Okay.
Blackhawk Heights, they
Let
went to Downers
me
North.
respond to that. You talk about vision of a community. I've talked to the people who 50 years ago established the high school, and they did it explicitly. The people who made that happen said they were tired of the kids from Westmont being treated like second-class citizens at those bigger schools. That's why they established their own high school. That is what happened in part. And I am not, here's the other thing, people talk about, we are outperforming those schools right now. Secondly, the opportunities our kids have in relationships and activities, I'm just gonna be blunt about it. Our kids who are able to be the starters on varsity athletic teams, if they went to Hinsdale, South, Central, Downers South, or North, 3/4 of those kids would never even play freshman sports. That matters. That's what we're affording. It's not just excellence in academics, it's opportunities for our kids. I'm not saying that some of them wouldn't play, but most of them wouldn't even make the freshman team. That's just a sad reality.
I got a comment on that. I lived in this town all my life, 75 years old. I did go to Hinsdale Central because I grew up right over here on Warwick. When I went to school, I graduated in '69. Westmont, from the kids and the people of Hinsdale, was considered the armpit of the nation. And you had to, I was kind of accepted because I played football. But there are many, 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 many kids that weren't accepted because you're from Westmont, you're not from Hinsdale, or you're not from Downers. I lived through that, so that is a fact of life. And I got
went through that same experience. So my wife lived here, she was born and raised here, her mother grew up here, and she had the exact same experience.
Yeah. I have a question for the architect. I would like to know all the safety, health, security of the new school compared to what we have now.
So one of the things, the state of Illinois recognizes that school districts have hardships and financing is difficult, right, with the property tax formula. So when we do an inspection of a school, and we're like licensed architects are required to inspect every public school in the state every 10 years, we review the buildings based on the codes that were applicable at the time that they were built. Meaning everything that's in this school is grandfathered in. So once we touch it, we have to bring it up to current code, but like some of the wiring that is not allowed in building codes today is still here. It's still here from the original building and can stay. Obviously, if we build a brand new building, everything is state of the art, everything is current per the building codes today. And
I'd like to know some of those new things that are different now than back when the schools were built.
I mean, ADA accessibility, just making sure that that every student, every adult, every teacher has the facilities they need and can move around the building under their own power. So if that means stairs, elevators, wheelchair lift, whatever the case may be,
Okay.
you know, toilet rooms that again, that are accessible to everyone.
So that the new building would be totally ADA.
Completely, absolutely.
Complete.
What about the
Okay.
sprinkler systems?
Yes, all schools are required to be sprinkled. Public schools in Illinois, new construction, let me clarify, are required to be fully sprinkled, fully protected. So again, the schools that were built, I think that law went into effect in the late 90s. So schools prior to that don't have sprinklers, there is no requirement for them to be sprinkled. So again, that just helps prolong the longevity of the building and make sure that people can get out of the building safely if there is a fire or an emergency. So again, it's just a good life safety system that would be
What
incorporated.
about security? From the old buildings to the new building?
So security obviously is an issue, and making sure that visitors are vetted into the building. So again, secure entrance vestibule sequences would be incorporated, meaning, you know, visitor can't be granted access into the building until they're acknowledged by someone in the main office. And then once you get into the main office, you can't get into the school until you given your ID and identified who you are. So I know there's some semblances of that already in place at all the schools, but we could just enhance that. Security measures in terms of cameras, motion detectors, detectors on doors and windows.
And that's
those are
all in the new code for the school?
Well, security's not required. It's very much recommended, especially in the environment that we live in, but it's not required.
As an architect, would you recommend that?
Absolutely, absolutely. We need to protect the investment, right? The community's making a large investment in their facilities, whether it's existing or
Well, the
new.
investment
They
is
should be
the kids
protected.
and the
No,
teachers,
absolutely, yes.
okay? I guess. Yeah, it's gotta be better than what we have, absolutely.
Right. I mean, things are different,
Totally.
the way the teachers teach, the way the buildings function, and how we accommodate activities, whether it's during the school year or after hours. I mean, all of that is drastically different.
Is there
than when you
criteria
still
on
go.
HVAC?
Absolutely. There are requirements for air changes per hour, so there's always a requirement for fresh air to be brought into the building. Air conditioning is always a hot topic, right? Air conditioning wasn't a thing in schools as short as 20 years ago. Nowadays, that can be a reason to cancel school if the air conditioning system isn't working. But it's all about fresh air and keeping the environment suitable for learning. So absolutely, those standards are more developed today than they were.
So, I guess what a brand new school, 2026, 27, 28, whatever, now, is 90% better than the schools we have now? 100%?
Well, it's kind of a subjective question. To that. I think so, but.
Well, you're an architect, you know, you
Sure,
know.
sure. Just the ability to move around this building. And Manning is the same, or Miller's the same way, where the ground floor isn't at the same level as the ground outside. So just the manner that somebody can come into the school and visit and move around is inhibited right from the start. Right, and that's something that we would definitely correct in the new building and make sure that everybody has equal access, no matter what their condition, their age.
All right, Joe, do we have like
Good.
a elevator system in here or
Yeah,
something,
well-
and it breaks down and it's super costly?
yeah.
If you put yourself in the day of a 5th grade student, you're on the 3rd floor for your classes, you come downstairs for the gym, you go down to the basement for the cafeteria, the nurse is on the middle floor, so on any given moment, you may have to go all the way across the building, multiple flights of stairs. When we have students who come with a broken leg, it's a nightmare in this building to deal with the handicap lifts that we have. I think the biggest thing about this conversation is return of investment. So again, you can renovate this building, you could put $30, $40 million in this building, but it doesn't change the fact that you have to go up 2 flights of stairs just to get to the hallway to get to the main floor. Things like that don't change with renovations.
It's like putting a lipstick on a pig.
Well, again, I myself am a car guy. There's a lot of nice cars right here on Cass Avenue. Those people spend a lot of money on the cars. They don't have an airbag. They don't have any lock brakes. They don't have backup cameras. They don't have blind spot. No matter how much money you put into that, you're not getting those type of features. It's no different than this. You could put 30 million in here. You're not changing this brick. You're not changing the bones of this structure. So from that perspective, do you want to spend your money on something that's depreciating like that? Would you want to do that? If given the opportunity, I would think no. But again,
The way this place is built, it does pose some, I don't want to scare people, but it's the truth, it poses some security risks. This is Dr. Braun, who's brilliant and one of the leaders in this district. She's got young kids, and I think her major concern that she's articulated, like we do it right now, is your concerns about, if we were to get the security, like, entranceway here at Manning, it would cost millions and millions of dollars here. It's unbelievable the cost, but could you speak a little bit to your security concerns?
Sure. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and my 6-year-old is in 1st grade now. She just started, and I always, anytime I'm in our buildings, I think, would I want my kids to be here? And when I think about our academics and our curriculum and our teachers and our staff, it is absolutely yes. But when I think about, for instance, the vestibules and all of the things that were just mentioned about the school safety and security, that definitely gives me pause. The fact that when you go to Manning, you enter the door. Now, we do everything we can to keep our kids safe, and I don't want to paint the picture that we're unsafe. We do have, it is a protected vestibule, but it still wouldn't be my preference. They would never build a new building like that today with a vestibule where it's on a different floor than the office. So they buzz you in, and you can't come in until you're screened, but it's just, you're not looking at the person in the face, and it's just not the best setup for an entrance. And that, to me, that one hurts. In Miller, I would say they do everything they can to keep safe, but it's a similar experience. They're on the same level, but it's not the same kind of experience.
A visitor, just like what Dr. Braun was saying, which I appreciate, a visitor is able to get to the hallways before they get to the main office.
Yes.
So when they're buzzed in, they can go anywhere in any classroom at any time without being, that's why it is tough. We do everything we can, staff-wise, whatever we can, but it's still.
And the thing that blew me away was the cost of building a vestibule that would accommodate what we're talking about for safety concerns is millions of dollars. It's not the best way to spend your hard-earned.
Well, but it's also nice to have when you renovate. So, as Rob said, right, changing your vestibules is not required. Okay, so we renovate this building, that changing of the vestibules is a nice to have. And if we renovate this building, we've got $0 for nice to have. Because this building will take up it will take $70 million still to renovate it once we open up these walls. And it will still be as inefficient, it will still not be as safe, because all of those nice to have things, we won't be able to afford, because we will spend that much on replacing every single water line in this building, every single piece of wire in this building, everything. And fixing whatever's happened in the walls over the years, right? Like, Westmont is an amazing town. I've lived here since 2010. By the way, I'm on my 3rd house. You guys will find it, okay? You guys will find it. The oldest one of the three too, okay, so 100 years old. And we just did a renovation, right? Bringing that back up to code was a lot of stuff that was, we had to give up the nice to haves because we had to do the must haves. In my second house, we had knob and tube wiring. And the inspector actually had to deem it was so bad, they deemed it a public health issue on the real estate contract. That was how bad that knob and tube wiring was. And that wasn't even twist-in fuses. The fuse box had been updated, but the wiring throughout the house had never been. Right? So like, that's the stuff that you're just talking, this is old car stuff. There's not a single person, if you go ask anybody out there on the street right now, hey, you gonna make any money on this car when you sell it? Not one of those people will say yes. They will say, no, I do it because I love it. And I know it costs me money. It costs me more to upkeep this. And it is something that they make money in their budget for because they love it. We love these schools. We make money in the budget because we love it. The money is part of it. As a board member, and I can speak for the whole board in saying this, our job is to look at those dollars. And our job is to be stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. And frankly, we're throwing really good money at bad. We can't ever get a return on investment on some of the money that's spent. You want something that's really numerical for what's better in a new building from an old one? Joe, how much has the electricity cost gone down at the junior high since we installed LED lighting in every place?
The bigger thing is the repair cost of not having to, emergency repairs, overtime, constantly dealing with having to get the building ready to go, and it's an emergency situation, and we're in the middle of winter.
Yep. So that junior high, when we talk about the cost of savings year over year, those numbers are real. Those numbers are numbers that we can and have measured. The junior high we spent $7 million, which by the way was an increase of more than $2 million due to construction cost increases, okay? We put new HVAC in that building, new LED lighting. We took every single ceiling down, upgraded that building, made it as efficient as it possibly can be. So frankly, we can look at that and say what our utility costs have changed as, right? So we know a percentage of a cost on our utility costs. The savings per year on operating one state-of-the-art building versus two, whatever is the exact opposite of state-of-the-art, right? We can measure that. And that is a significant chunk of the year-to-year savings that we can put into maintaining these other newer buildings and keeping everything up.
That's a great point. I think we shouldn't overlook the savings, $600,000 to $700,000 potentially savable dollars. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this might be the first time that this district has been in a position to actually have that kind of savings and start actually putting some money away for those rainy day situations when a boiler breaks down or you need to replace a complete AC unit, right? We haven't had that ability to say, we've got some reserves over here. So by doing this, we realize some savings, which helps the district build some reserves, because I'll just be honest, while I'll personally be in favor of this, I don't want anybody coming back to me asking me for another one in 10 years. So I like the idea of some savings, right, coming back to the district, being able to stockpile some of that money. I like the fact that you guys are going ahead, you know some real costs and what the real savings are on some of these things, so you know, like, well, if I renovate here, what's the saving versus just putting out a new building. And I think one last thing I just want to say is, I think good learning environments and good working environments make for more productive kids and teachers. And I would say, think about your own job, your working conditions. Think about if it was a little bit more comfortable. Sure, each one of us can come up with something we'd want to change a little bit about our working conditions. That'd probably make you happier to go to work and be more productive and all that. And while this district excels, I think we could probably do so much better if we just provide a better place and environment for our kids and our teachers to continue that excellence. So, thank you. That's all I got to say.
Who exactly are you? Are you an employee
I'm just a resident. My name is Mike Creed. I live on South Cass, over there off Adams Street. I'm just someone that feels pretty passionate about this. And I've got a 30-year-old, 28, and 14. 14 is currently becoming a freshman in the high school. My girls graduated from Westmont High and went on to go into college and everything else. And so will my son see a benefit from this new environment? No, but I believe strongly in having good environments for our kids and our teachers, right? We got some really good teachers around here, and I don't think anybody wants to lose them. Once you get to know the teachers, you'll start to see like they really bond with the kids and the community, and that's important in all this, the community fabric. So, no, I'm just a resident.
I do want to point out one thing Mike mentioned about reserves, okay? You guys saw that we've had multiple failed referendums. Previous school boards, the previous administration, none of that was done by anybody who's here today, has known that we've got aging and aging and aging since 2009. Those conversations started, frankly, before the TIF conversations started, okay? And we had some reserve, but I've said this a number of times. These problems aren't going away because we didn't pass a referendum. They're still going to have to be fixed. And we have still had to fix things. So for every one of those failed referendums, okay, there was still work that had to happen. We had to install walls in the high school. The high school had no walls. It was open classrooms, okay? So that was money that the school board and the administration, after a failed referendum, looked at what are our absolute must-haves in these buildings. They built that secure entrance, they built a secure entrance at each of the schools, okay, before it was ever an issue, as much of an issue as it is today. They put walls into the high school, they looked at the absolute what must we work on, okay, and they did that work, and they found the money for it. The junior high, one of the things that was not on that initial list of things that had to be done was the junior high's air conditioning, okay? And we worked that air conditioning to its last ounce of effort, okay? Literally, like, we couldn't even bring in the electrical at the school, couldn't handle the portable air conditioners. We spent $7 million. That was not a nice to have. That was an absolutely mandatory. So over the last 15 years, not all of the work that's had to be done has been done. The absolute must be done work has had to be done. And what have we had to do? We've had to draw down our balances. We've had to max out our credit cards. Okay, so we don't have money sitting somewhere. Okay, we are at a point where we can't bond much more. We can't bond enough to do this work. Period, end of story. We can't borrow enough money to do this work in any world because we're capped at what we can bond. So we had to use all of that money to make up, frankly, for the failed referendums previously. So we just continue to spend. This only gets more and more costly for the village and for the taxpayers, which is why, ultimately, why it's always come to the board and why the board has always been for it, because the best use of taxpayer funds is frankly a one-time significant cost. Yeah.
No, just, thank you. Just on the comment, I've heard it a few times about, and I think you brought it up, about, like, if the high school were to, maybe the high school should close and then divvy up the students between Downers Grove and Hinsdale, that, as a way, but to me, I kind of think is that Westmont taxpayers have 100%, like collectively, have 100% control over a referendum in Westmont. But if they were to, say, close the high school, divvy up the students, and if Hinsdale wanted to go for a referendum, like, that added so many dollars to the tax bills, that Westmont residents would be at their complete mercy. Like, we wouldn't, like the minority residents of like Westmont wouldn't have any control over the Hinsdale residents that might say, sure thing, we could care less by adding $3,000 to $4,000 for our taxes. Like, we want better school. I mean, so I would just think that if we would be defenseless, we would be at the mercy of the taxpayers of Downers Grove and Hinsdale if we went that route.
Well, they just pulled the pass referendum, so
Right.
I don't think they're gonna be looking for more money. And plus, their towns are extremely bigger than Westmont.
Right.
They have more business and everything else. So the impact to them going for referendum on a household.
But it's the impact of gain control, right?
Yeah, it's in control, and you're
We're here
right.
to control it, and us people are trying to control it.
We're here to participate.
Right, right.
We're at the time, yeah. Let's take a question, and we'll stay after, but
A friend of ours just had to pull 4 kids out of St. Mary's because they raised tuition 35%, and they brought them over to Manning. I was curious if you've seen or expect any other, for some reason I'm having a hard time thinking.
Enrollment changes?
Yes, I'm expecting a big group of kids coming through.
we are seeing a slight uptick in enrollment actually, but we don't anticipate, in the building that we're proposing will accommodate slight increases in enrollment if needed. So, but you
reality-
can't overbuild,
Yeah.
you don't wanna underbuild either.
And we are landlocked.
I was
There's
just
no
gonna say,
significant, like, places to develop.
New towns.
Yeah, so, yeah, so the amount that like our classes could grow is limited, but yeah, we are seeing a little uptick.
Which it also means our tax base, doesn't grow, right? So that, it's a double-edged sword there, right? You get it on both ends, right? Like, you're landlocked and, there's nowhere else to grow. This plan actually allows a little bit of growth for tax revenue, with the sale of this school or this property going to the village, which may help offset other taxes and things with the village wanting to do, or there could be other benefits to the community, and I think that shouldn't be overlooked. So keep that in mind.
They're gonna be the ones telling us that they're not gonna renovate the retirement home because we can deal without air conditioning. So I think maybe we invest in the kids now, and we'll benefit later.
We do appreciate the investment that taxpayers have made in schools, but this is massive. So, we're past the hour, if other people wanna stay around and ask questions, I want to honor the people who've been here and say thank you for giving up your evening. And we have about 5 other meetings, so please encourage other citizens to attend. They've all been publicized, that was the question. We sent a postcard to every single resident in Westmont more than a week prior to this meeting, and all the dates we have scheduled through October have been announced, so people have the opportunity to plan. But I really do appreciate everybody took the time out here. I hope we answered your questions, we can continue to do so.